This video is for Maths Week 1 Monday. So to go through the learning reminders, we're looking at identifying equivalent fractions. You can see here we have got a fraction wall ranging from 1/1 at the top to 1/12 at the bottom. So the questions we've got here, what fractions can you see on the fraction wall that are equivalent to 1/2? So to try and do this, you would need to find out where 1/2 is, which is here. Okay, and then to find any fractions which are equivalent to 1/2, we would go along the edge of the line here and try to match them up. So if I was to stop on this one, all of these fractions here would be the equivalent, which is the same as this half. So we're on the 1/8 block here. Can you count how many eighths would be one equivalent to 1/2? 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And you can do the same for any of these fractions on this wall, which would be equivalent to the half. So you can see on the next bubble, 2/4, 3/6, 4/8, which was the one that we were looking at, 5/10, and 6/12 are all equivalent to 1/2. So for this example, for 1/2, the numerator is always half the denominator. Okay, the numerator, the top number, is always half of the denominator, the bottom number. So some more learning reminders. We can write 6/12 as a half, we know that. This is called writing the fraction in its simplest form, okay? What is the simplest equivalent fraction to 2/6? So we're looking here at what can you divide both 2 and 6 by. So if we had 2/6 written out here, what could you divide the numerator and the denominator by in order to get a fraction in the simplest form? So I'm always going to try to divide by 2 first. Let's do the numerator first. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And you can see here I've got a third, which is still on this bubble. Now you can check using your fraction wall. So using any of these, you can check to see. So 2/6. So we want to find our 6. So 2/6, 1/6, 2/6. So that is the line. You might want to find a ruler or something to help you. So we would need to see which lines would join up with the edge of the 2/6. So I've got some options here. I know that 2/6 is the same as 1/3. I've got another line here. 2/6 is the same as 1, 2, 3/9. And we've got 2/6 is the same as 1, 2, 3, 4/12. Okay. Right, next up. What is the simplest equivalent fraction to 6/8? So what can you divide both 6 and 8 by? Again, you could use your fraction wall to help you to try and solve that one. Or you could see which number you can divide both the numerator and denominator by. Okay, and in this case, 6/8 is the same as 3/4. So here are some questions to do on this next learning reminders sheet. What fractions can you see that are equivalent to 1/3? So this time the line has been drawn here. Again, use a ruler or a piece of paper to line that up, and you can see any other fractions which will stop at the same point as 1/3. Okay, first practice sheet is the mild practice sheet, and it asks you to draw a circle round all the fractions which are equivalent to 1/2. Now you might want to use your fraction wall here to help you. You don't need to print it out, you can have it available on the screen, and you could just write down your answers in your notebook. So any fractions that are equivalent to 1/2. Second task is draw a square round all the fractions that are equivalent to 1/4, which is, we say, 1/4. So I'm going to do the first one here. I'm going to get my fraction wall. I'm going to find 1/4, which is here. This is the line I need. I get my ruler or my blank piece of paper, and I am going to line that up, and I can see that the line matches perfectly with this fraction, and that's looking at eighths. So we have 1 2/8. So 1/4 is the same as 2/8. Now I have a look on here. Can I find 2/8 anywhere? Here it is. So I can draw a square around 2/8. Your challenge is to write at least 2 more fractions equivalent to a half and a quarter. They don't need to be fractions which are on your fraction wall. If you've opted for the hot practice sheet, you can do both, that's fine. You've got your fraction wall here, and it's asking you to help to write the pairs of equivalent fractions. So we have 2/8 is equivalent to 1 something. Now you can either use your fraction wall to help you, or we can use that tip that we've used earlier and we've also used in class. What do I do to this number to get to this number? And it needs to either be a division or a multiplication here. So what do I do to get from 2 to 1? We divide by 2, which means I need to do the same to the bottom number. So 8 divided by 2, how many 2's fit into 8? Are 4. Now I'm going to check my answer by using this fraction wall. So I'm going to find 2/8, the 8 sections here, 1, 2, this is my line. Now it's asking me 2/8 are equivalent to 1 something. So if we line it up, brilliant. It lines up perfectly with my 1/4. That's the first one done. Challenge. How many more rows would we need to draw on the fraction wall to complete this pair of equivalent fractions? 5/7 is equivalent to 10 what? How many extra boxes would you need? Okay, so you've got your answers there, so you can mark them yourself. If you're a bit stuck, have a go at the half family. You will need to have an adult with you to help you. All of the bits and bobs that you need there, I'm not going to go through this one now. And the final challenge for this lesson is an investigation. And it says best score for me. So it says use this line of fraction cards, which you've got here, and you choose one of them as your fraction. So for example, 3/4 has been chosen. Look at the first square below, down here. Identify 2 numbers which, one over the other, make an equivalent fraction to the one chosen. So I would start by thinking of lots of different equivalent fractions for your chosen fraction. So 3/4, we know, is equivalent, as it's given here, to 9/12. So you might want to go back and use your fraction wall. I'm going to just find one here. So we've got 3/4. Where's my quarters? 1, 2, 3/4 here. Line it up. That's going to give me any other options. So I've also got 8s. How many 8s are equivalent to 3/4? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 8s, and also I have 12s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9/12. So I'm just going to make a note of those. I think that's going to help me. And it says write the equivalent fraction below the appropriate fraction card. Cross out these 2 numbers on the first square. So we're going along here, and my first one is 9/12. So I'm going to cross out 9/12 like that. Choose another fraction and repeat. For example, choose 1/5, write an equivalent fraction 4/20 and cross out 4 and 20. Keep going like this. You cannot use a crossed out number on your square for a second time. So you need to keep choosing different fractions, finding equivalents, and then crossing them off on here. For how many fraction cards did you manage to write an equivalent fractions underneath? A good score is anything over 10, anything over 6, but you are chasing 9 or 10, that's what you're aiming for. So the first one we did is a really good example of how many equivalent fractions we can find. You need to just have a look at the other fractions you're choosing at maybe one equivalent. So I've done that one, I can give that one a tick. The next one we were given is 1/5 here, and the equivalent was 4/20. So I can give that one a tick and write 4/20. Maybe I will do 9/12 here. I'd recommend doing this in your workbooks. You'll have a little bit more space. The next one I'm going to pick is 1/3. An equivalent fraction to 1/3 is 2/6. So I can cross out 2 and I can cross out 6. Awesome. Keep going like that until you get a bit stuck and maybe the fraction that you've chosen you've already crossed off. What sort of fractions is it best to choose first, and why? Why is it not sensible to choose a half first? Which numbers on the square are never used? Those are some other things to think about. Once you've had a go at one, have a go at another. See how many squares you can cross off. Best of luck.